very, very quick demo of the tool that you'll be using to do the practice. All right? So you don't have to do anything now except watch me. Yeah? I promise you it's very, very short. So, in a minute I'll be asking you to bring up your browser, preferably not Internet Explorer, and use that IP address, 54.217.74.74. Yeah? But you don't need that just yet. The way it works is, I'll set up a dojo, a practice environment, and we need to pick a language we're going to be using. And who knows Java? Ruby? C? Okay. We have to pick a language, so I'm going to pick Java. Okay. Now, to keep this some clarity, we're not actually shipping anything, so it doesn't matter if you don't know a language very well. And what we're doing is very, very simple. The purpose of the day really is that we spend a short amount of time doing the exercise, then we do a retrospective. Via the tool, we'll be able to see some of the work that each of you are doing, and you'll all learn from each other, and I'll make comments because I've done lots of these. And then in the second session, we literally start again from scratch. You can choose to do the same pairs, or you can use different pairs. It's up to you. Okay? So the fact that you don't know Java, please don't feel that's a handicap. What we're doing will be very, very, very simple. The purpose is not to finish the exercise. The purpose is just to improve your ability as you repeat the exercise. Okay? So I'll just pick Java JUnit. Then we need to pick an exercise. I want to make it short. So let's do FizzBuzz. Yeah, why not? We could do FizzBuzz. Who's done FizzBuzz? Quite a few people have done that one. Who's done LCD digits? No one. Let's do that one. And you get that ID. That's all you need to participate when I set the dojo up. This won't be the ID. This is just me doing a demo at the front. Okay? When I set the one up that you will actually be doing, you'll have the ID, you'll type it in there, and then you'll click Start. And then the server will assign you an animal to represent the laptop. Okay? And what you get is the world's simplest non-development environment. Okay? You get the files on the left here, the test file and the source file. These bear no relation to the problem you're actually solving. They are simply boilerplate bits of code to get you started. Okay? There's the instruction file for the actual task, which is, as you saw just a moment ago. Yeah? And then the only thing you can do apart from that is click the test button. When you click the test button, the files get sent to the server runs them, pattern matches the output to see if the tests that you've written have passed or not. If the tests run, and there's at least one failure, you get that little red traffic light at the bottom. Okay? So if we can look at the output here and we can say, we're expecting the value 54 from the hitchhiker test in that class, but we actually got 42. So if we inspect, we can see that the expected value was 6 times 9, which is 54, obviously, and the actual value was 42. So we can easily correct this. Let's just change that to 54, let's say. Run the tests again, green traffic light. All the tests ran, all the tests passed. Okay? The other thing that can happen is you make a typo. If you send the source to the server and there's a typo, it can't actually run the code, so it doesn't know whether it's red or green. In that case, you get an amber. All right? And all you do is you look at the instructions and you try and solve that problem in a test-driven fashion. So the only button you've got is to press that test button. Okay? Yeah? If you think you've got something that's worth submitting, you press the button, it gets submitted, you get a traffic light. And then you just keep going, and we'll be doing that for roughly 25 minutes. Then we stop and we do a retrospective. Okay? The way we do a retrospective is we go to the dashboard, and on the dashboard we can see all of the traffic lights accumulating left to right for all of the animals. And we click on the traffic lights from the dashboard, and we can see everything you did. Yeah? But I don't know who it is, I just know that it's the cheaters. All right? That's why there's a level of being anonymous. Okay? Yeah? Any questions?
Have you got enough laptops?
Yeah. and one there, which we can use maybe or not, okay? But you'll have to self-organize. You must have at least 2 people per laptop. If you want 3 people per laptop, that's absolutely fine, okay? But you just need to self-organize so that there's 2 or 3 people around a laptop, okay? While you're doing that, I will set up the dojo. AA 2E A6. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Time's up. Yeah. So please try and release your ego from the keyboard. Yeah. So that we can do the review at the front, which is the most important part, really.
I don't think I was aware of there being a time in it or what it was. So.
I did say half an hour.
Right, I didn't.
But, hey, that never happens in real life, does it? Yeah. This is the dashboard that I promised you you'd be able to see.
Looks like LCD digits.
You know which animal you are. You can look at that. Any comments on that? There's a fair amount of animals, but that isn't that surprising, given that I just threw you into Java, and some of you may not know Java. For example, the frogs, that's, what's your name? Alan, who's lending me the laptop, thank you very much. He doesn't know Java, but he's managed to get greens. There's at least one green. I should explain. This number here is the total number of traffic lights for each animal, and the number of greens, the number of ambers, and the number of reds, which should add up to that total. If not, there's a bug. Okay?
It's like the elephant's done some refactoring.
2 greens in a row.
Yeah, and the gorillas as well.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to play in test before that.
There's not 2 greens in a row here, because this one is the latest colour.
Oh, I mean, is they started out with a failed test.
Well, everyone starts with red, yeah?
And then there are no more reds, so there's 2 greens.
There are. Again, we can't know for sure unless we look at the code, but fortunately we can look at the code. So there's a lot of submissions here. If we went through every traffic light, and we could do that by clicking on the traffic light to start with, and again, just to briefly tell you what's going on, because this is an open source tool. I've just spun up a server with that IP address that no one else can see, so that we're not sharing the server with anyone else. And there is an open server called CyberDojo.com, and you can use it at your heart's content. That's the traffic light number we're moving from to. It's default set up as a difference of 1, but if you want to change that difference, you can. And then you can step forward or backwards singly, or you can jump to the ends of the sequence. Okay? So we can see the first thing that happened for the buffaloes was they seemed to delete this file and rename it as this one. And they also, while they did that, did some coding. Given an input of 0, we get the correct output. Again, just to briefly explain, this number here is the number of added lines, and the red is the number of deleted lines. Okay? And if you want to just get a view of it, you can. For example, if I click on the red there, the red vanishes. If I click on the green, which is at the bottom, it would vanish. Okay? So you can play around and see what you did or what you didn't do. Okay? And like I said, I haven't got time to do all of that. So let's just see what we've got here. We've moved from a green to a red. And it looks like you're just, whoever the buffaloes are, they're putting a new failing test in. Yeah? So any comments from anyone about this code? Anyone at all? There was something I heard Sam mention.
What is the correct output?
What is the correct output? Let's have a look at the instructions. Yeah? Each digit is shown below using a dot instead of a space. Because if I just had a space, you wouldn't be able to see it in the output, obviously. Okay? So this dot here, for example, is really a space. Yeah?
Should be alpha in space.
Well, the specification could be wrong. That sometimes happens, okay? Yeah? But I'm the customer, and I can say, no, it was right. It meant that a dot was in place of the space, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see it in the instructions, right? So this dot here and this dot, correctly, as your customer, I can now inform you that should have been a space. Okay? But that never happens in real life either, does it? Yeah? Of course it does all the time. Anything else about just this as it starts?
Won't display multiple digits in a row, because a new lining after the end of each character's line.
Okay. So there's an issue about the embedding of the carriage return.
It's too much detail like that as well, because you can't really see what it's supposed to look like without running it in your head.
Right, I like that suggestion. So a thought that pops into my mind is, assuming this is a whiteboard marker, instead of doing dot, 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 new line, dot, 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 new line, etc., you could instead do dot, 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 new line, quote, plus, quote, dot, 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 slash, new line, right? Because, you know, to sort of be slightly silly, when I look at this from the front, whoever wrote this is forcing me to burn extra calories, right? Figuring out what the hell is this, right? Okay, and that's partly what understandability is about. If you're forcing me to burn extra calories, that means it's not as understandable as it might be. So I agree. That's a nice comment.
Java doesn't have paradox, does it? Multi-line string.
Unfortunately not.
I think the names of the tests, I don't like seeing the word correct.
I agree.
The name of my test.
Correct is kind of a content-free word, isn't it? Yeah. It has to be correct. We don't have a choice about that one. Yeah. All good comments. Lovely. So let's pick another one, the elephants. As well as clicking on the actual traffic lights, if you just want to see the current state of the code, you can just click on the animal. This looks very similar. Yeah. Only thing that strikes me about this one is you're using uppercase as your initial character of the method, and that's not the Java convention. Java convention is initial first character. Okay. And by the way, as we go through these things, you really should be jotting things down, because we're doing the whole sequence again very shortly. And when you do start again, the point of the exercise is not to finish the exercise, it's to just do it slightly better than you did last time. Okay? Then you can pick anything you like. It could be something you see but you don't mention. It could be something I mention. It could be in your code, it could be in someone else's code, it doesn't matter. Just pick something, okay? So, let's get rid of that one. That one. Back to the dashboard, let's have a look at the frogs. Now this is nice. I mean, there's nothing extra here that we haven't already commented on. All the groups had the dots instead of the spaces, okay? It looks like you're sort of in the middle of a refactoring, because you had a green earlier. I was watching you, okay? This one actually passed. And this one's the refactoring, as you're obviously working towards making that a parameter. That seems fairly straightforward. But there is one thing that caught my eye particularly about this implementation. Here, any comments on that? No, switches have their place sometimes. Something more fundamental.
There is more code that the test is, that you need to pass the test, right?
No test for any of this code yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So an interesting sort of experiment in your mind, if you like, you can say, what's a characterization of waterfall? We try and do all the tests at the end. Yeah? Sort of slightly drifting towards waterfall, if you want to think about that, even in the microcosm. People have done studies looking at how much code is shipped live in the field that never ever gets run by any customer ever in the lifetime of the product. 15 to 20% is not unusual. How does it happen? This is one of the ways it happens. Okay, so if this was something that you wanted to practice, you know, and when you're in your pairs, that's deliberate, because if you're typing at the keyboard, you know, all that concentration is on the problem. You know, if you've agreed, one of the things you've written down is we're going to do test-driven development. We're not going to write any code unless there's a test. Yeah, the ones who aren't typing, up to you to make sure that they adhere to that, right? Yeah. And when Alan starts writing code without a test, we just toof him around the top of the head and say, "Come on, get rid of that. Where's the test?" Yeah. And I see that all the time on my travels, all the time. That pattern, okay, of writing code before we've written the test, right? Whoops. Let's have a look at the gorillas. Comments about this one?
Extra range, yeah.
It's Well, it's going beyond the brief because it doesn't say anything about returning value for null.
It did. I love the way you do what I would have done, absolutely I would have done 15 years ago. You jump into the implementation, right? Here's a tip. Forget the implementation. Turn off that Java compiler in your brain, okay? Right? And just let the code sort of wash over you. Look at the characters. What impression do you get from those characters? What's the meaning of the code? If you try and forget about Java, what comes through?
There's not a lot there because the functions don't have any real meaning to them. They're called untitled.answers.
Ah, excellent. Right? This one's been left as untitled. An answer. Why? Because that's what we started with. So where you start is really important. It has a really big effect on where you end up. Okay? Readability. Readability. Yeah? Really want to rename that. I don't really suggest you want any code that's actually going to mirror this kind of structure. Okay? So again, this is a big part of practice. When you're in the dojo, the point is you go really, really slow and try and do things really, really high quality. Okay? It just takes practice, that's all it is. Let's have a quick look at the Panda. Another interesting variation, because up to now the implementations have been static methods on a class, and this time we decided to go for an object method. Yeah? Again, no right or wrong, but again it seems to me that the fact that the default implementation was static has kind of led people quite strongly into that fact that it might have been a static. But then again, maybe it is static. Where is the state in this? If you're passing the argument in the actual method call,
Yes.
swings and roundabouts.
The whole day was about don't use singletons. So like,
Yeah.
not use words.
I sort of agree, but again, just be careful to qualify that. Singleton does actually have instance methods. It's just there's only one object.
Yeah.
Okay, that's different
Although
to a
it's
different
static.
pattern where all the methods are static. Okay, that's called monostate. Okay, lovely. Snakes. This is pretty good. I like this same issue with the dots that we already mentioned.
The test is named a bit unconventional.
Yeah. You do see that again quite a lot. I see it a lot in my travels. The name of the method parrots what the body of the method, test method, already tells you. So it doesn't actually tell you anything new. Okay. But in this case, it's a fairly sort of data-driven style of testing. There isn't really a lot of scope for putting a specification-based style of naming here. Okay. So it's perfectly fine. Reminds me of something that was on an earlier one that I didn't comment on, but now I see it. An earlier one had, I think the method name was something like print digit. Yeah? So names, again, are very important in software because we're not actually printing. Yeah? And even the instructions might actually ask you to print, but that doesn't mean you have to write the test to do the print. Because if you think about it, you don't really want to test the implementation of print, do you? You didn't write that, right? And wolves. Wolves. Interesting. So this looks like there's a little bit more care about the underlying representation. This one correctly has taken the dots as spaces. It's decided not to embed the new lines in the representation. Okay? It's made an array of 3 strings. I like it a lot. But there is a little bit of Java we could do just to improve that very slightly, okay? So another feature we have is I can fork from here. This is a brand new dojo now, so I'm not affecting the original in any way, okay? But just to show you, happen to be Panda again, we could do it there as well in a minute. But here we could say, well, let's just tidy up a bit because that should be a lowercase e.
You've got 2 pandas or?
No, it's a new dojo.
Oh, okay.
LCD representation, we're already saying that. Don't need to keep saying that. Yeah. Let's just check I haven't broken anything. Good, I haven't. And now what we can do is this. If you know the syntax for Java, you'll know this anyway. But if you don't, an opportunity to learn something. Anytime you get duplication, yeah, physical duplication, again, let the code wash over you, you see the duplication, it tells you there's a potential for a missing abstraction, right? So in this case, the only feature you get in this editor is Shift-Tab. So we can get rid of that. We can get rid of that. Oh, and Tab, of course. Shift-Tab and Tab. And then, like that. Again, shouldn't have broken anything, but I have.
Yeah, last one. This is why we didn't try and do this. It should be like that, shouldn't it? Because you've got the 3 in the string. Yeah, it does. By the size.
I don't think that's it. Oh, it was. There you go. You learned something. You don't put the 3 in there. Okay. So just a little thing you might want to do. But again, anytime you have a duplication, that's the warning sign. Okay. Okay. So I think officially we have a quarter of an hour break now, is it? What is it? Write down the times here. Officially it's half-hour break now. Okay. If you want to go for a break, I think it's fair enough to do a bio break. Okay. If you don't, that's fine. Stay as well. Okay, because we're going to start a new dojo. So I'm going to go setup. It automatically, by default, takes you to the same set of combinations again to emphasize that idea of repetition. Okay. So ditch the code you've done. Write down the improvements you want to make. Start again. It's a good start. If it was me, I'd do 0 and then 1.
Let's do
This one I might have Okay, everyone. That's the amount of time we roughly said we would do. Isn't it amazing? Even though it's not something we should think, I want to finish it. Perfectly normal. And I will leave the server up for a day or two afterwards. So if you remember the number and the IP address and your animal, you can just go to the page, put the ID, and then click resume. Okay, and if you remember which your animal is, you just click on your animal and you'll get back to the last traffic light. Okay. So, as always, we finish with a review. So, if I could ask Alan to...
Yeah, right on what line?
Because you could always go back to the server and pick someone else's animal and trash their code.
Yes.
So I do some subtle bugs.
Yes. Call that a test.
Yeah, I've done it twice. I know. Try to find different approaches and 3 or 4 away.
So, let's have a look again. So there's the dashboard. Any comments?
Lots more batteries.
There are. Now you had a little bit more time, but not a lot more time. There's a hole in there.
When we were talking.
Of course. Yeah.
Buffalo really didn't know Java.
Yeah, it's speed bump for the buffaloes to begin with. But they're on green now. You can't see, well, there's a limited amount of space, so stuff drops off. This is the most recent, okay? The stuff just drops off. They have had 3 greens. You can only see one at the moment, but they have had 3 greens. Yeah. Quite a wide variety, 26 from the raccoons, 10 from the moose. That's perfectly normal. Nice little sort of red-green progression here for the wolves. And the other thing you can see from these dashboards is the gap between traffic lights. Yeah. It's 30 seconds per column. Okay. But again, there's no wrong or right, but again, to sort of apply the metaphor, if you're doing waterfall development and it's been 6 months since you did a release, how confident are you going to get this release out? Not as confident as if you had 6 releases every month for the last 6 months, right? Yeah. Generally, the bigger this gap, the more likely this is going to be an amber. Pretty straightforward. If you could actually do some analysis on that. Okay. So, anyone in particular want their code to be scrutinised? You want to have? Yeah, brave, good man.
I don't know. I think I was lying. Is anyone else lying?
I think no, you were lying. So let's just show you the step-by-step feature just for a bit. Here we go, renaming the files basically. Starting with 1. And there's the code just for 1. Alan is new to Java syntax, so obviously that's perfectly, this is just reflecting his learning bits of syntax.
Can you add that out? It's the wrong representation of 1.
Yeah, I know, I realised that.
Excellent. But that does raise an interesting point. Some people have a mistaken idea that tests prove the code is correct. They don't. For any non-trivial system, you can't prove the system is correct. All that happens is the code and the tests form a co-evolving system. Yeah, and they help you keep the code alive, yeah, and they help you have confidence that the code has the behavior you'd like it to have.
I thought the biggest risk in doing this was the fact that we mistyped what the instructions said.
And again, that's exactly what happens in software, isn't it? Right?
So I was thinking what we're going to aim for is actually reading those 3 lines of instructions,
Right.
chopping them into symbols, and then using them directly.
Right. Yeah.
So it's data isn't literally, it's kind of like model-driven architecture, really, rather than typing the code.
Yeah. Yeah. The point we made to one of the groups at the back there was you did actually have a customer in the room. So they had a question about when they'd done 1 parsing, they'd done 2 parsing, and then they decided to do 12. Because that, well, after you've done 1 and 2, it's kind of a little bit suspect to do 3 and then 4 and then 5, and you're just copy-pasting. Okay? I would argue in this environment in particular, you've got better value if after you've done 1 and 2, you do 12. Try and force the fact that 1 and 2 were actually just what's called sliming. When you hard code certain things, that's called sliming. Okay? Sliming is useful because sometimes it can tell you what the next step should be. You want to unslime the slime. Okay, yeah. But they actually asked me, they said, how do you want the output to be when there's 2 digits? Do you want the space between the actual digits? 3 characters, space, 3 characters? And I thought about it and I decided, yeah, that's what I'd like. Okay. And again, the point was, wouldn't it be fantastic if you actually had an on-site customer? Yeah? Because the feedback cycle would be so fantastic. Yeah? But often you don't.
You have to ask the product architect.
Yeah, and they have to ask someone, and they have to ask someone. Yeah. So again, just going through a bit of syntax, and then we get a green. So at this point, we've added an extra test for 2, and we've added extra code just for 2. Excellent. Get rid of a bit of get rid of the amber. Again, if you know Java, you'll know that Java compiler, for example, this code, this function returns a string, this method returns a string. Without the default line, it was complaining, it says there's a path through this that doesn't return a string. That's not allowed, okay? So you get an amber. But, just as a point of observation, isn't it interesting now where you've ended up? Have you got a test for that default? No. Okay, so in my travels, I sometimes find companies that do proper testing. It does happen, I promise you, some places, right? And they maybe even do coverage. They got 90% coverage, and I say, this is great, but let's look at the 10% that you haven't got covered. Yeah? Things like this, not unusual.
So on that one, we had not implemented exception being thrown, if we could work out how to do it in Java.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But we had part of string and then the string explaining that we meant not implemented.
Right. I'm not disagreeing, but you see how it's different from declaring a variable of type string here, yeah, and then just returning it. Sometimes you can almost, you don't quite get away from it because you have to initialize the string, okay? But it is just an interesting effect that happens. Yeah. So what's happening here?
I did it do 1 and 2. Then I realised I have one wrong.
This was the point that Sam made. You realised you'd made a mistake with 1. So let's skip past that till we get to the green or red. Yeah, that is not right.
Yeah.
You're getting there. There it is. Just that one little space, look. Right there. 1 is working, 2 is working. And this looks like some refactoring. I'm not quite sure what this one's doing. This looks like the same as number 1 again.
Well, it's actually because I've put in a thing to return an array node.
Ah!
Because I put in an extra function, I thought I'd better put an array node function in. Because I had my arrays, and to put 1 and 2 together, I called the 2.
Excellent. So now I look at it and you point me to it. This is just a string and this is a string array. Excellent. And this is 12, which you're working towards.
I've done that one, yeah.
Yep, it's green. It's passing. We have another method to get multiple digits.
Yeah, which I actually ended up renaming because I did another one.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. Skip past the ambers. So now you've got 1 and 2 and 3, but I'm interested in the tests. So again, this is a good stepping point, but obviously ultimately you'd want to pass in 1 there, and if you wanted to pass in 20 there, you'd pass in 20. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying. Super. Anyone else want to volunteer? Because we're running out of time, we're not going to get through. Hackers, okay.
No, the koala, yeah.
Oh, we did change it.
There isn't a koala. Yes, there is. Which is it? Pandra koala.
Which were we?
Little koala.
Koala.
Okay. But always start at red. Doesn't that read? You can just see that as a 0. So this is an amber somewhere, just because you just haven't written the code yet. Returning null. Still something not quite right.
Yeah,
Yeah, we fought the compiler a little bit. And it's given us some funny errors, so we worried about a few things and we realised we just got the wrong method name.
Okay.
It was a bad compiler error.
Yeah. But that's software.
So we called the method render digit, but
Yeah.
we were then calling in the test as render.
Right. So what is this? A little hint that's what's happening. What is the underlying message from that little episode?
It's not that clearly named originally.
Well, maybe. It was perhaps a change of thought.
Yeah, we did change it, but we didn't change it on the first basis.
Right. Okay. So maybe that. Sometimes you see something like that, and it is something that you're thinking, I always do that. No, I think about it, I always do that. Okay. So again, that's something that goes on your list. I want to try and be a bit more careful about if I've written a test with this name, when I write it, I'll try and remember to actually use the name I used.
But I think we
Yeah.
changed it, see, we didn't have quite a few factors, so, you know.
Yeah. And again, that's a point worth making. You do come to rely on your tools very heavily. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you can become over-reliant. Okay. So, yeah, renaming it based on the actual name of the file. And then you're trying to return something. It's going to need a new string array there. There it is. You're at green. Some people have a slight, what's the right word?
Horror.
Not horror, something less than horror with the word should. Okay, because in English should is, it should do that, but it doesn't matter if it does. Alright? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't really mind. And obviously that isn't really what we want in software. So it depends how you read it. I don't particularly worry about that, but I know Kevin at one point certainly did.
So you say returns one or must return one?
Must, for example, that's a stronger word than should, exactly.
I'm thinking RFC
Right.
technology here, but
Right, okay. Just something I'm pointing out as I see it. I like the layout here. Carefully laid out this so it looks like a one.
Interestingly though, unlike the others, there's no carriage return or line feed unexpected on those.
Yes. Good point.
This is not the API for the end user.
Right. This is just
but
getting the
this is
representation of.
representation
Yeah.
we
Right.
thought we can do better testing on.
Yeah.
And
That's an interesting
there is a
point.
last step in some form to get the string out.
We
maybe.
had exactly the same conversation about whether you should have an abstraction that represents the LCD digit as an item in itself, and then different responsibilities around collecting those together and rendering them on a given output
Yes, this
or
is
device.
maybe
Right.
a step to encapsulate these three array string
Yeah,
as a digit.
the 3x3 grid.
We were influenced by the closure talk. We were going for the list method.
I wanted to do recursively, but you can't have dynamically sized arrays in Java apparently. So.
There's a challenge. Yeah. No, I agree. I would be slightly suspect of the new lines because immediately that you want to do two digits next to each other, you don't want the new lines at that point. Yeah. So, this is all good learning. Now this is interesting because you now put them into a two-dimensional array. And I overheard a conversation that the founders were having about whether you did or didn't need a two-dimensional array. Okay.
Yeah, we're discussing merits or dysfunction of the two-dimensional array against a structure with a top, middle, and bottom line.
Right.
Just perhaps a quick
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can do it either way, obviously.
You do Ruby hash.
Yeah.
Well, I thought of now programming in Java here to use an enumeration for the digits because they are limited to 10. So that's we could do something.
I'm not sure. For me, that smells like a little bit of
Over design.
over-design. Yeah.
Yes, somewhat maybe.
Yeah. Because we have something that an array actually is a perfect fit because we have the index into the array is kind of like a hash already. I certainly wouldn't feel I wanted to hash or something like that until I really felt I needed it based on what the code was looking for. Stumbling through some nulls. Now you're at red with the new test. So again, I know a couple of groups that adopted this idea, and some of them asked me, if you've done two individual digits, should you do the next digit as 3, 4, 5? I would suggest no, you should start to think about the actual problem. Okay. Some misconception sometimes with TDD is it's an excuse for turning your brain off, right? And you are allowed to think ahead. Yeah, definitely you are allowed to think ahead.
So this was the question we had with Peter, that whether we should, because it was the question about locality.
Right.
So we wanted to keep the rendering of the things all in one place in case we ever wanted to change the plot, essentially.
Right.
So that's why there's these sort of constants at the top of the test file, and then we're just using them.
Yeah.
Right.
So Seb's answer was not to use that pattern at all.
That's true. We didn't have time
To go to another pattern where that problem doesn't exist, where we would have the rendering of a multi-digit integer in a separate class that we perhaps so we're composing a method that says, and the test is just have you call that class to render your particular digit,
Right.
and then you don't care what somehow what the result is like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long time since I've done this particular exercise, so I don't know. Every time I do them, I seem to end up somewhere different. I do like the fact that this is render digit and this is render. clear indication there that the 2 digits there is a special thing.
There is a limitation. We could pass 10 into render digit, which is a bad
Right.
thing.
But, well, it's not bad, but what problem does it create?
It's not a single function anymore, it's trying to do 2 jobs.
True, and the effect of that, which is what I'm getting to, is that it's slightly harder to refactor, to move forwards, because you're trying to do 2 things if you think about it, right? Okay.
You could just make them render digit privately and change that to render.
Because as a client of that, if I was getting an integer passed in to me,
Right.
have I then got to, as a client of that class, would I then have to work out, well actually, is the number I've got smaller than 10?
Excellent.
So which one have I got to call?
Excellent. Okay, so the answer to both of you is yes, right? Because I'm happy with this as a step, but ultimately I want to remember the point that you've made, that it should all come back to this.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to expose
Right.
registered digits.
Absolutely.
That's the question.
We
How do
never
you do
bothered-
that?
Yeah, we never bothered making it private.
Well, if it's private, you couldn't test it.
Protection.
No, but this would just change the render, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because you've always
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. And now you're green. This is an impressive jump.
That was a great
Yes.
hack.
Maybe there's some Googling going on here.
So I suppose this is going ahead of just rendering 12, because this will now render 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want. Really.
And then, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's about how confident you are. Okay? But again, if you're doing this in a dojo session and someone does it like this and it's just like 57 ambers after it, that's an indication that they should perhaps learn to do the slime-based approach a bit better, to learn how to do that with more sort of dexterity in terms of the syntax, if that's what's holding them back and that kind of thing.
I have to say, and this was what the big house lab was about, it passed first time.
Yeah. It does happen sometimes. It's
Well,
amazing when it
I
does.
say that, I didn't
Yeah.
code it,
That was-
he's too humble to say
Well,
it.
I can type, but I didn't know the Java syntax. So actually, it was a classic example of tripling in this case, because
Yeah.
these guys were telling me what syntax was while I was typing.
Yeah.
I think
I've done
one-
triple programming in a couple of places, and sometimes it really works very effectively. Something that just strikes me again in terms of overall impression, though, is sort of 2 spaces around the equals here, 2 spaces around the equals here, 2 spaces around the equals here, and then someone else started typing.
No, it was actually me.
Yeah,
I was just in a hurry. I
Ah.
couldn't bother to press space.
Okay.
No, that's true.
Again, I can't not see that.
Switch
I'm
to
used to
C
programming,
type.
my brain sees that and it has to sort of go.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
little
know
extra
why-
calories burned there. Okay.
I did think at the time, I just didn't picky, you know.
No, and that's a good point. I think you did the right thing because it's obviously easy to refactor that one.
I think the thing is, Paul's used to trying to fit STL container iterations into his for loops, so he always tries and makes the white spacing as little as possible.
Yeah, true.
Not right or wrong, it's just something I can't help but see.
I think
That's
that's
white
one
space
of the-
here, I don't know if that's deliberate.
Yes, very completely. I always do that, don't I?
You don't always do it.
So John, what do you think about the numeric constants in that?
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that.
Oh, well, we'd refactor them.
Oh, this one you mean, for example?
Well, and 3.
Yes?
This is the only time where this 3 is shown in this code. This is,
Yeah.
yes. It's inherently there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's because it's a stupid thing. We have to set the size of the array before we can even use the bloody thing. I mean, what a stupid language.
Yeah.
Give me a vector of string and I would have been fine.
There are times when I see a magic number and I just totally flummoxed, and clearly at that point it should be refactored. There are other times when I see a magic number that's been refactored, and frankly I think it would be better if they just left the number. Because maybe it's inside a function which is a getter or something, and that just returns what it would have been anyway if it had been not a method, it had been a private data member. Okay?
So I
So,
knew that int C948 was a hack, but
yeah.
it was because I don't know Java well enough to know how to convert a character into.
And I don't have a problem with that. If you're happy, you're happy. If not, you can
The
obviously
whole
just...
thing in converting to a string is a hack.
Yeah.
Because the right way to do it is to modern div 10 and then reverse the string, but I had no idea how to do that, so I just didn't.
Yeah. No, but good stuff.
I think the one interesting thing that we went through,
Right.
actually as kind of a team as we were going through, was at what point do we implement the proper solution So we had a test, as you were saying, where it's single digit, right, we can just hardwire results out for that. Now we've got a double digit one. Right, should we hardwire a result for that, or is that telling us we could have 99 combinations here? Or then, so do we hardwire that, then do another test, which is actually past 4 digits in?
Yeah.
What's the kind of tipping point at which you go, actually, this kind of just hardwiring it is just not viable anymore, so I need to refactor at a wider level to put something in that's more fit for purpose.
I agree. And a lot of the time, to be brutally honest, it seems to come down to what you're feeling here, not so much here, what you're feeling here. Yeah.
In my instinct now I understand the problem, not the code.
Right.
Actually, I want to go away and anticipate the pattern and work out and do it properly, driven by the input. If I knew the language well enough to do it.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing is, you've got to test it.
Yeah. But actually going through all these levels of tests, once you've done it once, I think, well, that's the waste of time. You want to, you still want the tests.
Yes.
But the process of getting there, you know, once you understood the problem, you should say.
But in software, we're very rarely doing the same thing we've already done. So
Yeah,
unfortunately, most of the time, this is actually quite a reasonable reflection of what actually happens in software, I would suggest.
Is your point there that after doing the first couple of tests that you knew actually that I need to move to that
We actually have to do the
implementation?
algorithm. Then at some point in this code, actually, that's the key algorithm.
And I totally agree, and that's what I meant about at this point you feel more slime would just be wrong.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I meant by once the slime has reached a certain level of I cannot stand this much slime anymore, it's telling you, okay, we
So
have
what do
to
you mean by slime? You mean stuff that's never going to make it into the production part?
exactly stuff that's there just to get you to a temporary green
Right.
that you can deliberately refactor against, knowing that you're going to get something that isn't this.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of a nice name now I think about it, slime. Because if you think about the slime that a snail leaves, it's a trail, isn't it? And that's kind of exactly the point you're trying to make. It's something that enables you to get further on. Yeah. And that's where you got to. Well, you might be a bit further, but that's the last
No, that's
submission.
it. That was,
Yeah.
that was the hand high five moment and you said stop.
Yay! I don't know why that's changed. Oh, yeah, I should have just said that. Let's fix that. Yeah, now we can disable it. Anyone else?
Wolf.
Wolf, okay. Cheers, Sam. So a little bit of code. Just the code for that. Yeah, I like that. The word new would be even better, just there.
Yeah.
Capital S as well, yeah, good spot. And new, still amber, interesting.
How about images?
Oh, there's a new missing there. There we go. Just look. So now we're not quite at amber, we've still got. Now we're there. Square brackets here, yeah. When you see little steps like this, I think back to when I was much younger, and I used to write code not driving it from the test. I just think, how the hell did I ever make any progress? Right? Yeah. Okay, I mean, I can remember times when I was programming in C++, and I'd type loads and loads and loads and loads of code, and then I'd compile. I'd spend the next half hour fixing out some combination. So they've done one, now a 0, they're doing 1 now. That doesn't pass, because they haven't written the code for it yet, but that's forced the code to exist. So now very similar to what we saw in one of the earlier ones. Yeah? again, this sort of hard wiring like that, again, I'm totally fine with that as a stepping stone. Don't see a problem with that at all. And sometimes you think it's a stepping stone, and you're going to have to unslime, but when you actually get to the end point of the tests, it turns out you don't. Yeah? And then they decided to change it. Okay. Let's just go back a sec. Again, just very interesting, just very, very slight reflection of you write the code before we've written the test. Yeah. We've changed this code here before they've written the test. For example, the test that checks that syntax, that actual message. Like Steve was saying in his session, if anyone went to Steve Freeman's session, the stuff that ends up in logs generated by format messages, you want to test that because that's ultimately something that's part of the API. Now we're red, and now we're green. Ooh, that looks like copy paste. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But the older I get, the less pasting I do. Yeah, if I'm writing out the code twice, I'll just write the code out twice. Okay, copy paste is, I get bitten by it so often.
Arthritis have the fingers somehow.
Well,
Keeping coffee boiling.
yeah, I don't really think that is a problem I'm going to have. So here's 2. That's red. Yeah, now they're cooking on gas. They move straight to this. Interesting to see what happens next. What happens next is they wrote 21. I can't see very easily, which is interesting. I think this is also reflecting what we just talked about before. There's a space between the two numbers, like that. But again, not hard to see that. Not easy to see that, I should say, right? And really, that's part of the specification. You ask the customer, should it have a space between the 2 digits? And I said, yes. So really, we could embed that as part of the name of the test. Multi-digit number has spaces between, column spaces between the digits or something like that. Then it becomes really clear and obvious. An alternative to really help me not burn calories would be you could do some characters, 3 characters there, and then a plus, and then a single space. I'll just draw it like that. You follow?
Yeah.
And then the space there would also be quite hard to see because it would actually be that. So you could replace that with space. Okay? Again, these are all things that when you really press on readability, they help you burn less calories. Syntax again. Now proper red. Just syntax there.
When it came to the space, for maintainability, could you use delimiter instead of something? Because if that space changes to some other character.
I understand, yeah. What do people think? You understood the point, yeah? Rather than putting space, we could put delimiter, and the delimiter is initialized to a space.
I'd probably refactor the first time I came up for it. If I could change it to something else, that would then be something in the system that if it's changed once, it may change again, and that's when I change it to delimiter.
Yeah.
It's that Yagni thing, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah, that's my gut feeling. Okay. Depends how far you're sort of looking into the future, how confident you are about what the customer's giving you as the requirements. Okay. Yeah.
One thing I've seen is, I think is a bit of an anti-pattern, is where that value for space or delimiter or whatever is held as a static on the class that you're testing, and then you say in your test that it's got value, and then the class dot its static value.
Right.
And I think that's a bit of an anti-pattern. So I think the test should be saying exactly what it is, not relying on whatever's in your implementation. Because otherwise you're not testing it. You're not. The spec isn't saying what you're testing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's a bad thing to do that hashed development as well?
Generally, I mean, I don't want to say yes or no all the time. I'd like to look at the actual example, but if you're pressing me and say which happens more often, I would agree with you. Okay, I want the behavioural driven specification of my tests. Yeah.
It's like having a test almost being like a queen room. You're not allowed to use anything from the thing you're testing.
Yeah.
Like for formatting up a message or packet or something
Yeah.
in a protocol, you mustn't use the defines that, like exactly what you say, defines the really thing you've just written. You should actually just use explicit numbers that is comes from the spec.
Yeah.
Like you want to use a method to get the thing that you expect out of the test.
Sorry?
It's the same, except it's not a static finder, it's a method that you call to get it.
Yeah, but that's still part of the thing you're testing.
Yeah.
What if it actually has a
Yeah.
test?
Let's take a step back, okay? There's a slight, I mean, I don't want to stop at quarter past. What I sometimes see on my travels is a misunderstanding of the nature of code and tests. So, if you have some code, and you have some tests that test that code, right? You want to be quite aggressive about removing duplication inside the code, right? But when you're inside the test, it's important to realize tests are different. They're code, but they're not the same. So I've learned over time to be less aggressive about removing duplication. Okay? So if I have something in here, and then I have that choice in the tests about referencing that to pull it back into the tests, or actually just leaving it so that it's there and that's there, and over here, it might actually be the same sort of nugget of code. It's just duplicated. I'm much more happy than I used to be with that idea. Okay?
How far do you go with that though? Do you emails?
Yeah, how do you feel? You just got to make a judgment. Okay.
Well, you could take the email.
You want a linearity to your test. If you're looking at a test and to read it, you've got to jump over here to do some setup call, and then some over here to do something else, and something else is being refactored, and you have to. And it breaks that understandability of the test. You're trading that off against the repetition. So there is something to be said for just having a test that's just bang, 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 and then there's another test, and the first 5 lines are the same. Okay, well, yeah, they're the same, but I actually quite like the fact that I don't have to jump around. I can just go bang, 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 and this is one test. Okay. Trade-off. Yeah, it's a trade-off. Thanks.
Looks like they've actually got the solution. And that's it.
It's not
Good
quite.
well-being.
Isn't it?
No, there's one slight alteration towards the end. To cope for, I think it's in.
There's 3, 2, 1. There was a program on TV, ITV ages ago, called 3, 2, 1. Remember that? Dusty bin, yeah. There's 3. They're green. They're green with 3, 2, 1. Four, 3, 2, 1. This is looking very good. So I think we'll finish now at quarter past. Round of applause for the Wolves. And don't forget, if you want to go there, assuming we're still connected to the internet, I have lost my connection. But if you go to cyberdojo.com, you can use this as a public service.